Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the River Cruise Masterclass. So, this is technically the second episode, but really the first episode of our deep down series of every single river cruise company that does Europe. I'm sorry, not even every single river cruise company. This is just the top 15. The top 15. Did you even know there were more river cruise companies than Viking? Most people don't. So I'm going to be doing this in alphabetical order, so I play no favoritism in this lineup. And we are starting with AmaWaterways, which is actually going to be one of the major competitors and like the second largest, my assumption, river cruise company out there if we're talking about singular brands. So it's definitely someone that I recommend. I have been on one AmaWaterways cruise, and I have another one scheduled for the end of the year. And so I say that with saying that we are going to have some amazing conversations, because today we are going to be diving into one of the most recognizable names in the river cruise world, AmaWaterways. And so this is a line that is going to be, I consider it a comfortable luxury. It's for people who don't want it to be pretentious. This is not a pretentious brand. So it's that sweet spot between comfort, activity, and value. And it's a premium experience without drifting into the ultra luxury tier. And so if you're often wondering what makes AmaWaterways stand out and who it's perfect for and how it compares to its competitors, this is going to be the episode for you. All right. So let's start with those questions, right? So I had those 15 questions that we were talking about before, and we're going to talk first about the unique selling points. So AmaWaterways is known for being innovative and adventurous. They actually pioneered the twin balcony stateroom. So what this means is your room is going to have an actual balcony that you step out and explore, and you can actually get out on, and it also has a French balcony. Now, a French balcony is where it has the balcony feature where you can open and close it, but you cannot actually step out. So they pioneered the twin balcony, which is going to have both for the same cabin. They were also one of the first to introduce complimentary Wi-Fi shipwide, and I think what really sets them apart is their philosophy of like, why not? So they have a fleet of bicycles on board for guided tours. You know, they also include a culinary program where you can dine ashore on local specialties. And this result has been a river cruise line that blends luxury with adventure. You're going to get quality services and comfort, but you're also encouraged to go out, explore, pedal through the vineyards, or bike up to see castles. Now, I will tell you, with the biking, it is not e-bikes. So some of the ultra luxury lines have e-bikes, Riverside, Scenic, some of those other ones. And when they tell you it's an 11-mile bike ride, they're not lying. They're not lying. How do I know? I'll tell you that story later. Anyways, okay, so who is the ideal audience for AmaWaterways? In my experience, it's for like active, culturally curious travelers between 50 and 70. However, I will tell you, Adventures by Disney is actually done by AmaWaterways, and their minimum age on board is 6 years old. So you can have younger generation, but they're again not going to be catering towards them. I did a Christmas markets cruise last year over Thanksgiving, and there were multi-generational families, and so there were like 7 to 12-year-olds on board. The staff loved them. It was so cute to see how much they enjoyed interacting with the younger people. And I was on board at 30, and there was nothing wrong with that. And people really enjoyed learning about you and kind of making that connection about why you decided to go on a river cruise so young, because it does historically skew older. I personally love river cruising, which is why I started this podcast, which is why I highlight it. And I think it's an amazing way to travel, but you also do have to have a mindset of knowing what you're getting yourself into with going on a river cruise. I actually did a blog post on my website, thepoodlebooked.com, about what it looks like to go on a river cruise as a younger person and what you have to have is that mindset. So definitely something to think about. It's going to be mostly North American couples, and these are going to be people in terms of like who AmaWaterways does that enjoys that sort of quiet luxury. A lot of first-time river cruisers also really enjoy AmaWaterways because they really strike a nice balance between upscale but not intimidating, as we talked about, that quiet luxury. Because I said it before, and I'm going through my notes, and of course they bring it up now. Ama is the only one that partners with Disney, so you have Adventures by Disney's on select sailings, which means families can come, but outside those trips, it is adult orientated, and they don't have the kids facilities. It is one of the few lines that does allow 3 to 4 people in a room, so you can fit those extra people if you need to. If you're wanting a completely adults-only environment, I would steer you towards Viking because they are the only ones that are adult-only. But if you're social, you love a good balance of excursions and relaxations, AmaWaterways could be the perfect fit for you. So onboard atmosphere, right? The vibe on board is going to be refined but unpretentious. It's very country club casual. You're not going to need a tux or a gown. You might want to dress up a little because one of those little extra things that they talk about, and we'll get to it, I'll elevate it again when we talk about dining, is they have a chef's table that is included in your reservation. You get to go one time at least on each sailing, and they make sure that everyone gets to experience it. The ships are going to carry on average 150 guests, so it feels very intimate. Service is warm and personal, and within a couple of days, your bartender is going to know your favorite wine. Evenings are very low-key. Just like with most river cruise companies, it's going to be a pianist in the lounge, maybe some local dancers come aboard, or just some great conversation with new friends. I will say they do go all out on Christmas. And they had a Santa come on board, and we sat on his lap and got Christmas presents. They had Christmas carols. We did Christmas tree decorating. We even left our shoes out because there's a German tradition where you leave your shoes out, and if you get coal or chocolate, if you've been good or bad. I was surprised that I did not get coal, but obviously I'm just a favorite. Anyways, so now that we're talking about the ships, Ama's fleet is modern and has about 20 plus ships. Its cabins range from compact to comfortable statements all the way up to your spacious suites. They do have the twin balcony design, which really maximizes that light and fresh air. The bathrooms are actually surprisingly roomy. I did a video of this, and I'll repost it again on my Facebook group, which is called I just did a vote on renaming it, Cruise Better. Tips for river, small ship, and expedition travel with Sydney. It wasn't the name I actually wanted, but I let everyone vote, so that's my bad. The bathrooms are surprisingly roomy, and I will post a video of that as soon as I post this podcast so you guys can see it if you're interested. So on board, you're going to find a lounge, an observation deck. Now, here's something that you're not going to find on some of the entry-level river cruise companies, a pool or a hot tub on board. So AmaWaterways has a pool on board their ships, as well as a small fitness center. And if you go on the Ama Magna, which is going to be, they call it the double wide, it's basically the size of 2 river ships put together. It has multiple restaurants, a larger spa, and a pickleball court. So if you guys wanted to do a pickleball tournament on the river, I'm your girl. I'm awful at pickleball. My eye-hand coordination is not there, but I love playing. So I'll be first one out. You know, you can, if you invite me, I'll be the first L. Like, you'll be like, huh, at least I'm not going to get last. That's Sydney's job. That's me. Okay, dining. So dining is a major highlight. AmaWaterways is a member of La Chaîne des Rôtissiers. It looks like rotisserie. That's all where my mind went. So basically what this means is that the food is refined and often regional inspired. Expect something that's unique to each destination as you're going by it. And on that same vein, unlike Viking, the wines actually change the lunch and dinner wines change every single day. based on where you're sailing. So as you're sailing the Rhine, you'll be like, oh, look, there's some vineyards. That's where our wine is from. Something similar, obviously not exact. So like when we were doing the Danube, we had some Hungarian goulash. We did a lot of like the German classics. We had a German night on board. And so you're going to have, when you're French classics, when you're in Burgundy, and these excellent wine pairings at lunch and dinner, which are included. Beer, wine, and soft drinks are included in your meals. And there's also a chef's table, which I was telling you about. 7-course dinner, completely included in the cost. And every night is different. And they kind of go through it. Everything is really unique and special. And what I also really enjoy is the day of, you come to your room after doing your morning activities. They have a little menu pulled out for you and says, oh, can't wait to see you. So it was really fun and really unique. I thought it was such a fun little thing, and it's at no extra charge, which is really those small things that make a huge difference on a trip that you don't realize until you experience it. So that's one of those things where it's so hard to compare apples to apples when you're looking at all of the river cruise companies, because what you see as the price has so many little extra inclusions that you can't put an immediate price to. Now, in terms of entertainment and activities on board, none of the river cruises are going to do huge Broadway shows. You're going to have those live pianos, those local performers, trivia nights. They'll have cultural talks every night where they'll kind of go over what you're going to see the next day, high-level things about what to expect and what really stands out. However, where they're going to stand out is on their excursions. So AmaWaterways includes all of their excursions. Well, when I was on mine, one was not included, and that was an evening out to go see a Mozart play. But you had 2 or 3 options for the morning activity, and then like 2 options for an afternoon activity or a full day activity. So you're getting a lot more extra, whereas some of the other cruise lines are just going to include an introductory to the city as the one excursion that's included, period. And they also have, similar to another cruise line we're going to talk about, Avalon, active excursions, which are going to be guided bike rides, castle hikes, and also they're famous for their wellness hosts, which are going to lead yoga, stretching, our cardio on deck. Now, if you're thinking, I do not have the stamina to keep up with all this, I am not active enough, they actually have 3 to 4 separate groups for every single excursion, where you have just the normal group, you have an active group, and then you also have a gentle walkers group. And so what this is you have just people who are going to be the run of the meal. You have active, where you're just going to be moving a little faster, making sure you're focused on getting, more stuff. And then you'll have your gentle walkers, where you're going to have maybe more taxi rides included or things of that nature. One of the things I loved when it came to my excursions is if you did have to do a bus ride, even though the buses would hold 40, they would cap it at 25. And same with the size of the groups. They usually got another group leader, or like the person who's giving you the tour, if the group got over 10 to 15 people. And I thought that was really one of those great things, so you didn't feel like you were just guided and herded through sort of these things. And that was one of the things that I loved. And this leads me to the inclusions. So when you see an AmaWaterways fare, it is going to include your accommodations, all of your meals, all of the shore excursions, and I say all with an asterisk behind it, right? Wi-Fi, bicycles if you want, beer and wine with lunch and dinner. And so what are those extra things that you need to prepare for when you're going on an AmaWaterways cruise? So some of the things that aren't included. Gratuities. Gratuities are $125 for a week. And sometimes they're included, like this month, gratuities are included with if you purchase a river cruise through myself at the Poodle Booked It, because my host agency is having a promo with AmaWaterways. Premium drinks outside of meal times. They do also have a happy hour before dinner, and they have drinks included there. So, and that's going to be like margaritas and all that other stuff. But if you want something outside of those specific things, it is an additional. Spa services, they do have a small spa on board as well as a workout area if you so choose. That's the one area I did not check. The spa, I did. And I was amazed at the price. It was 80 euros for a 60-minute massage. If I would have known that the first day of my trip, I probably would have had 4 massages on my 7-day cruise. Thank goodness I didn't. And so yeah, they have a sip and sail happy hour before dinner where cocktails are on the house, which was a little bit of an extra nice touch. Now, shore excursions and destinations. I've kind of gone over this, but I jumped ahead of my notes, typical Sydney. Excursions are where AmaWaterways shine. Every port has at least has more than one included tour, and you can choose your pace with the gentle, regular, or active. Bike tours in every city are really common, and that is probably going to be one of the only things that you need to book as soon as you can. And that is going to be 45 days before your trip sails is when the excursions start. However, I just got a little tip from my one of my AmaWaterways reps, is that sometimes, the key is sometimes, after you make your final payment, so at 90 days before, the excursions can open up. And so that is where, if you want to do the biking, that is the first thing that sells out, because that is really one of those only things that is limited to the people, where they can't get extra extra bikes. However, if it's really a need, they will sometimes borrow from another ship because they have partners, right? Or they also hold back like four bikes that they don't book ahead of time, so that they can offer that when you get on board if something does happen. So that is something that you can do. That is one of those interesting things. Now, when we're talking about AmaWaterways, there's actually more that they do besides Europe. So they've got Europe covered. They are the bee's knees, but they also include the Mekong in Vietnam. They have the Nile in Egypt, and they have the Chobe in Africa, which is one of those ones that I'm really interested in, and I think it'd be a really cool. Basically it's a 4-day river cruise, and then you can combine it with your traditional safari. They have a rail program that I am so interested in. So it's a rail and river of Africa. Sign me up. And then they actually just released it, which is the Magdalena in Colombia. And this is huge because it's basically opening up an entire new part of the world to river cruising. And it's been delayed, I think, a year now, because AmaWaterways is actually creating all the ports themselves and making sure that everything is kind of set up down there, which means that it's just become like a lot harder than they thought it would be to set up all of that stuff. But that means that if another cruise line comes in, they are going to have the exclusive rights to some of those ports and the ability to port the closest to everything. Now, in terms of value for money, AmaWaterways is consistently rated one of the best value for quality lines. It is not the cheapest, because value does not mean cheap, but it's what's included. You're going to have your tours, your drinks with meals, you're going to have your Wi-Fi. The high quality service on board means that you won't feel nickeled and dimed at all. So, like, let's just say if Viking is the Ford of river cruising and Tauk is the Mercedes, AmaWaterways is like a Lexus, which is luxury with value, just as some, like, if you're a car person. So, as a personal highlight on my sailing that I went on, one of my moments that I think is the most hilarious is when I tried to do a guided bike tour along the Danube. Beforehand, I was talking to the cruise manager, because as a solo person, he takes the time, as well as the captain on the first night. They do a solo dinner where they invite everyone who is solo to have dinner with the captain and the cruise manager, just to kind of show that they care and kind of connect all of those solo people together. I was like, I'm gonna do a bike tour. It's not gonna be that bad. I can do it. Like, if the clients on board this cruise can handle this bike ride, so can I. Girl, I was wrong. I have no idea. I made it halfway, and I had to turn around. No, false. I made it a third of the way. We were going up and down these hills and circling around, and I thought it was going to be just like a nice, relaxing bike ride. It was 11 miles. And they were not lying when they said 11 miles. I thought it was just like you know how when you're biking, miles seem shorter? The wellness manager on board was like, oh, I'll come back with you and I can, just to make sure you get back to the ship. And I was like, no, please let me suffer in peace. Let me just be very, very slow on the way back. And I was. And then what I did as a benefit is I went into the pool. So they do have a pool on board. It is heated in the winter. Everyone thought I was crazy as I put on my swimsuit in November, but I had a great time. And we went through a couple of locks and I was just hanging out by the pool. I did a thirst trap. Like, that's what we do, right? But I will say on top of that, like, going solo and doing the Christmas markets cruise was an amazing experience. All of the personal touches, and I will sell my soul for another Christmas markets cruise on AmaWaterways because of all the little details they put in to the Christmas markets. We were on a 7-day cruise and I think we went to 10 or 11 Christmas markets. By the time we were done, I was like, I'm done. Like, I don't need to see another Christmas market. I've seen them all. But it's unique to kind of see how they are different in each country, how they're set up, or what's going on with them. Our cruise manager was very honest about what to expect, and if you see something that you like, don't wait to see if it'll be cheaper at the next spot. And that there's a mix of those like trinkets you'll see in the United States, as well as like unique things that you'll only find here in Europe, or just like more the handmade crafted items. So they very much were great about setting realistic expectations on what to expect for the Christmas markets and how to enjoy yourself while you're going on them. But that was a value add, and all of the excursions that you would have in May, you had in December, and then they added on doing Christmas markets, which I thought was a great sort of thing, and which is why it usually is a little bit more expensive as well. So a couple of the drawbacks is the cabins on the lower decks are a little small, but also river cruising in general is a little small. The drinks outside of mealtimes do cost extra. Entertainment is more low key, so if you're expecting something more exciting, it's not on that. They do have one masseuse on board, as well as somewhere to do, like, if you wanted to blow dry your hair or do like a full updo. But it's not going to be a full salon. It's not going to be a full whatever. Very small space. One of the small things that I noticed is the fact that they did like a 2-liter of Coke versus like the tiny glass bottles of Coke that you normally get in Europe. And so that felt weird just because it became like, I'm a snob when it comes to my sodas. And I felt like it was just somewhere that was like a small change that really would have made a huge difference, because most of the time my sodas were flat, just because of how they're pouring it, they're doing whatever. So that was something that would be like a negative for myself. And if you're expecting that ultra luxury all-inclusive experience, Ama is going to be a step below that tour. But for most travelers, it's a minor trade-off, and you're also being able to do it in a more like relaxed, comfortable way. Now, as we talked about, hype versus reality, right? So AmaWaterways markets itself as innovative, luxurious, and active rich. And in my experience, it largely delivers. The camaraderie on board was better than I expected. I made a ton of friends, and I enjoyed everyone I was able to interact with. They can sometimes oversell their cabin size or inclusivity, but honestly, AmaWaterways lives up to itself as a top-tier premium river cruise line, and I will constantly sell it as that. And I think it is a great value for what it does. So if we're talking about on competition, compared to Viking, AmaWaterways is going to be more intimate and exclude more excursions. Compared to like Tauk or Riverside, or Scenic, it's going to be less in all-inclusive, but also less expensive. And against Uniworld, it's more modern and active driven, while Uniworld is very boutique and opulent. I will be traveling with them for Egypt, for the Nile, because once my mom saw the cruise ship and what it looked like, she's like, I have to. So that's what we're doing. And versus Avalon, Ama is slightly more upscale with more inclusions, but it's priced a little different because Avalon basically gives you 3 choices in the morning of activities, either active and adventure, your classic, or like cultural. But other than that, you have to pay for any additional excursions. Now, behind the scenes. So AmaWaterways was actually founded in 2002, just for some history, by Rudy Schneider and Kristen Karst. Rudy is actually considered the godfather of river cruising and was with Viking when they introduced river cruising, and then Avalon, and then created his own river cruise line, AmaWaterways. So it is still a family-owned company, and both Rudy and Kristen are still in the business today. They do weekly webinars, and I hear Kristen on those webinars almost at least once a month. And so you can really feel the love and passion. So Ama actually comes from the Latin word love, and you can feel that passion in the details. From the solar panels on deck to the warm cookies after a rainy tour. And I will say that's another thing. I really enjoyed how AmaWaterways had food more readily available. On another river cruise company I went on, if you didn't eat at the breakfast, lunch, or dinner, there was no food on board besides like a small cookie station. On AmaWaterways, before breakfast, they have a pre-breakfast in the lounge, and then they have late night snacks for those who stay up late, and it's usually themed about where you are. Like there was schnitzel, there was goulash, there was all kinds of random things. So anyways, something I just thought was nice is like an added inclusion. And so what's new? So here are some headlines about AmaWaterways, right? The big one that we talked about already is AmaWaterways expansion into South America. They are launching cruises on the Colombia's Magdalena River with 2 new ships, the Ama Magdalena and the Ama Melodia. And this is a huge move because no other cruise line has tapped into the Colombian market yet, which I think is great because you don't have to fly as far. They're also in Egypt with the Amadalia, and also bringing on 2 or 3 new ships in the next couple of years. On the fleet side, you know, Ama continues to innovate with their ships, refurbishing them, doing their twin style balconies, updated decor, really focused on those wellness programs. And their flagship, the Ama Magna, remains the standout on the Danube, and actually they're doing a second. So a few other is that Ama has created a full wellness program fleet-wide and dedicated wellness hosts for yoga, stretching, fitness classes, also a healthier dinner option, not goulash, just as a fun fact for y'all. They've also expanded wine cruises. So if you join a winery, they can do wine cruises with AmaWaterways. They also are doing it with beer. And you can do the Rhine and kind of learn about all the different hops and things of that nature. So if you know a brewery who wants to do this, reach out to me. We can work on a program together. We have the Mekong itineraries, and they have special cultural departures with guest chefs and culinary departures. That's what I meant. And environmentally, they've also been experimenting with solar panels and cleaner fuel additives to make their ships more sustainable. And basically, so it was invented in 2002, and it is currently celebrating 23 years in business. And they currently have a promo for that as well. And yes, so all in all, AmaWaterways is showing no signs of slowing down. They have their new destinations, their fresh partnerships, their wellness. And one of the things I didn't even bring up was their soulful retreats, where they're really focused on like the African American influence in France and in some other places. So that's really an interesting take that they're taking, and those are ships that sell out fast. So if that is something that has ever interested you, definitely recommend getting into that. So in closing, where does AmaWaterways sit in the river cruise world? To me, it's a sweet spot. It's upscale, it's inclusive, it feels luxury without a top tier price tag, but also doesn't feel stuffy, because there is a certain style of luxury where they want those grandeur, those things at nature, and that's not the feel of AmaWaterways. They're very much a down-to-earth, quiet luxury, and I will stand by that statement. So if you are into that sort of stuff, if you want a balance of adventure, comfort, luxury, AmaWaterways is exactly the fit for you. If you have any questions or I haven't answered something that you have always wanted to know about AmaWaterways, please let me know. Next week, we are going to be in alphabetical order, doing the complete opposite when it comes to excursions and inclusions, and that is Amadeus. You probably have never heard of this line. I had never heard of it before I started researching river cruise companies, but it has a special spot for a lot of travel advisors in terms of a great value line that most people don't know about. So next week we are going to talk about Amadeus. I can't wait for you to hear about that episode. I will be doing some high-level overviews of AmaWaterways, of river cruising, on my Facebook group, The Cruise Better, which is tips for river, small ship, and expedition travel with Sydney. If I've missed any questions that you had, please don't hesitate to message me. If you are enjoying this, please don't hesitate to subscribe or write me a comment. I would love that so much. Other than that, thank you again, and I really appreciate you listening to the River Cruise Masterclass as we go in depth on all things river cruising. Sail safe.